Professor Berhanu Nagga is an economist, academic, and a seasoned political leader who has played a prominent role in Ethiopia's public life for over 4 decades. Greeting viewers, today our guest is a distinguished figure whose life story has been deeply intertwined with many of the most defining chapters of modern Ethiopian history. Professor Berhanu Nagga is an economist, academic, and a seasoned political leader who has played a prominent role in Ethiopia's public life for over 4 decades. Having completed his advanced studies in economics abroad, he built a distinguished academic career teaching at universities in both the United States and here in Ethiopia. He has also contributed significantly to economic policy discourses, including working with the United Nations Economic Commission ECA for Africa. His political journey placed him at the forefront of Ethiopia's democratic struggle following the historic 2005 general elections, and he was also imprisoned and then continued his opposition activities from exile as a leader of the Gunboat 7 opposition movement, as we all know. And now was sentenced to death in absentia by the EPRDF government. Then he returned to Ethiopia in 2018 following major political reforms initiated by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. And now today he serves as the Minister of Education of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia and continues to play a significant role in the country's political and intellectual landscape. Professor Berhanu, welcome to our studio, and we're very honored to have you right here today.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Before I dive into my very critical questions, I'd like to start first about your personal experience. So your life has positioned you at different roles. Academically, you are a political activist, then you're imprisoned, you've also been exiled, and now currently you're working as a minister of the current government. Even at my time, there were times where we used to hear your name as one of the most iconic politicians across the country. And then with the current situation going on, there was a time where you were highly criticized, questioned, and doubted based on your current role as the Minister of Education. So through all these ups and downs and through that magnificent life that you have held, what are your major things that you've learned from your life and the things that you actually think were wrong that you want to share us today?
As you said, you are essentially talking about a very long period through which not only Ethiopia, but not only Africa, but the whole world has gone through a series of transformations in terms of the ideas that are governing what a good society is. What is a good society? At the end of the day, the question is, what is a society that can provide not only satisfaction of basic needs in the economic front, but also belongingness, a sense of participation in the political process through either democratic politics, through the achievement of basic freedoms. And these issues are issues that have shaped a significant portion of the 20th century. Essentially, the idea that animated the Ethiopian youth at that time is Ethiopia is not having an economy that it deserves. It is still very backward, although it has a very long history, starting from 2,000-3,000 years of the Aksumite Empire on. We have not produced an economic system that could generate rapid economic growth, that could modernize our economy so that the majority would live a decent life. So there was this sense of, if you call it anger or dissatisfaction with the way the Ethiopian economy was progressing in terms of providing better livelihood for the majority of the population. This sense that we are not modernizing as fast as we should. Our main explanation for that was the political system. The political system was backward. The political system was what we used to call more feudal. That does not try enough to modernize the economy rather than to keep it in the old system, and therefore that system has to change. From the 1960s coup d'etat followed to the 1974 revolution, that whole generation was animated by this idea that we are not providing our society what it needs and what it deserves. Therefore, the political system has to change to make sure that we can actually achieve rapid economic development, and with it, along with it, equity, so that our economic development would address the needs of the poor and the marginalized. And those are the issues that animated me, that animated my generation for a long time. Now, there was a problem with it in the sense that we were much more ideological than practical. We were not pragmatic. We were taken over by the ideological struggle at the global level between that was a period of the Cold War, so between the socialist bloc and the capitalist bloc. We were predominantly supportive of socialist ideology, but not without having a very careful and pragmatic evaluation of our own economy, rather than just being pushed by the ideological drivers such as equality. The Marxist analysis of why societies are not developing as they should is something that we can just bring and implement in Ethiopia and achieve what we were hoping, what at least in my view, legitimate issues that we were raising, but we were not practical enough to see how would it work in our context and how do we develop it in our context. So if I have to pick an issue where we have gotten it wrong, it is that. Not the ideas. The idea of equity, the idea of having a modernized economy, the idea of increasing productivity and changing the basic structure of our economy from backward agricultural economy to modern industrial economy. All that, what we call structural transformation, all that issue is still legitimate. But the way we did it was so ideological, so not grounded on the realities of our own country. And I think at the end we end up making situations worse than better.
On the point that you're raising right now, well, how I understood it was that, so we agree on the challenge that you are actually telling us right now, because I think at some extent we're still facing those challenges. So your drawback is that the method or the mechanism that you used to fight that system did not have a concrete background, or at some point it was wrong. It
is not very much grounded on the realities of Ethiopia, in the sense that whether these things that we are aiming for, that we are aspiring, are achievable in these ideological parameters that we established through the Marxist, radical, socialist perspective, that I think is not well thought out. We haven't been grounded on our own reality. We were much more ideological than we should be. We should know now that route is a route that led to all the crises that we have gone through for the last 50 years.
Yes, so as to that, what do you suggest for this generation to change in those mechanisms, fighting the challenges that we're currently facing? At some extent, it's the same kind of challenge we're still facing. So.
It is fundamentally the same. That's partly why it is sad, in the sense that even after 50 years, we are trying to deal with essentially similar issues. But I think we are now much more intentional about it, in the sense that we know practically from all these past experiences that we have to be grounded, we have to be practical, we have to be. It does not mean we should not have any ideas. We should still have our idealisms. We should still aspire for a society where poverty is eliminated, if possible. We should still aspire to have an economy that is equitable, in the sense that it helps not just simply to grow the economy, but to have a distribution that makes the life of the lower echelon of society to live a better life. Because at the end of the day, that's the only way that you can have a stable society. You cannot have a huge difference in in income, in any kind of inequality, and hope to have a stable society in the long run. So that concern for equity, equitable growth is still valid. The concern for modernization and structural transformation of our economy is still valid. But I think now we want to actually look at what works within our context, within the context of the way the international economy works, so that we can be very nimble, very much more precise in the kinds of medicine that we are providing for the economic problems that we have.
But let me take you back to your personal life again. And so you have been learning and lecturing economics abroad before you came to your home country, Ethiopia, and finally engage in the politics of Ethiopia. So how has your economical background helped you or influenced you to understand the country's political and economical challenges? And within that frame, out of curiosity, Professor, why economics?
I think when I started freshman year in Addis Ababa University, my interest was to study law. It was our study about socialism and Marxism to a certain degree centered on the economic foundation of a society. The argument has always been, unless as always you change the economic base, you cannot change the political and other structures. Therefore, to understand how the economy works became a very important part of my yearning, if you will, in education. So I became a freshman. Before the first semester ends, there was a lot of disturbance, and we have to leave. At that time, we were actually living underground because the government was looking for a lot of young people at that time who were considered the more radical socialists of the time. So I have to leave the country. I have to join the armed struggle of the EPRP at that time, and through that I went abroad to the United States. So when I went to the United States, the first curiosity was to understand what was it that I was going to give my life for, because I've gone to this armed struggle. I was imprisoned by the party that I joined to improve Ethiopian society by the EPRP itself, while we were in guerrilla struggle. So when I left, my whole curiosity was about understanding why was I going to give my life for? What is it that I need to understand about this thing? I joined when I was very young. I still believe that the basic sentiment was right, but I also saw the problems with what you might call left organizations at that time through this experience in the party during the struggle, that it is a system that does not tolerate any criticism. So a little criticism led to our imprisonment. About 15 of our comrades were killed because of that, and I was just young, therefore that's why really that I survived. So when I left, the first thing that I wanted to do was to study the economics of socialism, the internal party struggles in the communist parties that we were following at that time, like the Chinese Communist Party and the Russian Communist Party and the rest of them, and say how they treated dissidents within the parties. And that, I think, became what I became in terms of shaping how I look at the world, how I look at equity, equality, how I look at party structures and what kind of party structures provide for a more democratic dispensation. So I think most likely I became a social democrat starting from then, because social democracy, at least in my understanding of it, was a social organization that at once wants to keep the basic liberal democratic political order, but at the same time create an economy that is fair and equitable to the majority. That, I think, has animated the way I think about the world, the way I think about even Ethiopian society since then.
Related to this question, I mean, I think I've heard you speaking about your own kind of philosophy in the area of economist. How can we make economist an Ethiopian?
That's part of the debate that is taking place in Ethiopia, I think. I mean, for example, we want rapid economic growth. So what would give us rapid economic growth? But when we want rapid economic growth, what do we do with the poor? Is it going to be in the same old ways of just simply let the economy grow and let it trickle down to the poor, or do we actually implement a pro-poor growth? There is no question that we need growth, but should it be more pro-poor in the sense of bringing the lower classes up, or just simply drive, assume that the private sector would drive it forward without worrying about distribution? I think there is a big debate. I mean, I would say in the current Ethiopian debate, most believe this idea that yes, we have to catch up. Yes, Ethiopia has to grow much faster than it was growing. We have to be very intentional about what it is that we have to do in terms of agriculture, industry, mining, what have you. Every aspect of the economy, we have to concentrate and use the country's resources for achieving structural transformation. But in the meantime, we also have to think along with it, how could we do it without making poverty worse? How could we do it by ensuring that the poor can have a decent life? We need to do this if at the end of the day what we want to achieve is a stable society that can move from our economic problems of poverty, of inequality, low levels of productivity, and things like that, to a higher level of economic development that provides significant increase in productivity, but at the same time that also the poor shares from these productivity gains by making sure that the income of the poor and the lower class. I would say the majority of Ethiopians are now very clear about the core things that we have to do. We have to achieve rapid economic development. For that, we need to increase our savings. There is no question about it. And we have to transform the economy from this predominantly agrarian economy to more industrial economy, which essentially means we have to increase productivity both in agriculture and in manufacturing, in mining, in everything at a level that would ensure a reasonably decent living to the people who are gaining employment from these new industries and things of that sort. So there is that sense of this anger, this yearning that we as a civilization deserve better than this. We need to develop our economies commensurate to what our forefathers have provided at the thousands and thousands of years ago. The anger that comes from looking yourself at the mirror and say, how are we so poor when we have that civilization before other part? There is that yearning. I think it's a very important fuel to drive us forward. This is a civilizational society. It has memory. We are not starting from zero. We have a history that shows that we can do this because we have done it much before many others have done it. But somewhere we have lost our way in the middle of it. Now we have to get back to that. Now we have to consider ourselves a society with memory of civilization, a society that deserves and can achieve rapid economic development.
Let me interrupt you on that topic. And wondering back, it's as you've stated, there's still an anger, there's still an unanswered question that has been coming for decades from every generation that we can agree on. But you've already said it, that there has been some place where our civilization is cutted. So that being the situation, and you being the Minister of Education currently, Do you think Africans as Africa should go back and search civilizations, back to their fathers' and grandfathers' civilization, and dig out what has been buried? Or are we supposed to cop up with the world that is now currently? Are we supposed to be running to the front, or do we need to stand a little bit, calm down?
I don't think human civilization can go back. Neither can we as Africans. It is important that we have a memory so that we are not oppressed by the weight of history, what has happened to us, what has happened to the erosion of our civilizations and things of that sort, and concentrate on how we bring back the old civilization. We are part of human civilization. Knowledge has expanded. Whether fairly or not, that's another thing. But science has significantly expanded. Technology has significantly expanded. So we are not going to reinvent the wheel from where we were. What we need is a psychological aspect that we are not some inherently weak or inherently backward people. We have a history where we have been moving along other civilizations in the past. Somewhere that has been curtailed. It is to a certain degree our doing, but it's also the change in the international environment. Since the dominance of Western civilization, that gap between societies has expanded significantly. And now the issue is, how do we narrow this gap? The knowledge is available. We don't have to start from zero. We start from the knowledge that is available to all human beings and build it with some intentionality about moving forward. Not to just simply copy forever, but expand our knowledge base in such a way that we are also going to be part of the creators of new technologies and new knowledge and things of that. That's what takes us to the value of education, which I'm sure we are going to come to. But
yes, definitely.
To answer, and it's a very important question that you asked in terms of, when you look at some of the debates, this anger about the last 400, 500 years of African history and our history, the anger that we feel that we are moving but going nowhere, moving in the same steps. Understanding of why that is. It's our political system, it's our economic system. Some part of our cultural tradition also might have contributed to all this. Some also psychological damage that is done to us through this more contemporary civilizations, the racism, the ideas that we as Africans are not capable, are not up to what is required. We have gone through that, and part of this anger have led some to say, no, we have to go back to our tradition and things of that sort. My argument is a bit different. It's not to go back to that tradition. It is to actually have that memory and the power that gives you in terms of your ability. You can do this. There is nothing inherently wrong with you. There is nothing inherently wrong with our societies other than the way we organize our societies, the way we move forward, the way we understand knowledge. All that is now coming together in the sense that we have to not resist any change or human knowledge in general, but to adopt human knowledge wherever they come from and use it to improve our societies, to improve the future of our children, and to have a place, a really meaningful, equal place with the rest of humanity. At the end of the day, in my view, the question is not just about us, not just about Africans. The crisis that we are observing now in the world also forces us to think ourselves much more deeply as human beings, because it's human civilization that is now being questioned in some quarter. So I think we have to be more pragmatic, more practical, more intentional in terms of how we move forward rather than react.
So if you say going back is not going to be an option, that we can definitely agree on, especially on the points that you have raised. But do you think we do have the ability, we have the time, and we have the potential to cop up with the rest of the world? The reason why I'm actually picking this line up is because the system in which the world was actually built up has already given Africa a place. And that does not, the system is not allowing us to cop up with them. We can't be on the same level as they are in, because that's how they have built the system. It might be through colonization, it might be through the political crisis that we're going, the governments, and even in human history. For me personally, and I think a lot of majority of Yodis, especially this century Yodis, would agree with me that human history actually goes backwards. What is the new thing that we have invented, actually, that changed the perception of the world? Elaborate on that, please.
That's a very interesting question, in the sense that, I mean, if you look at history, long history, I mean, most of the civilizational struggle was between the East and the West, right? I mean, go back to thousands of years. The contribution that, say, for example, the Persian Empire, before the emergence of the Western Empire, or the Chinese Empire at that time, was much more developed than, for example, the West. I mean, the West, essentially, the dominance of the West started, depending upon who you ask, around 460 AD. Before that, it was, one civilization comes and another one was, but it was also all civilizations borrow from the civilizations before them. That's why, I mean, historians that were studying that period would argue that Western civilization is not just Western. Western civilization has borrowed so much from the Middle Eastern civilization, the Arabs and the Persians and the Chinese in the East. That's how human society evolves. There is no one civilization that's pure, in the sense that has not borrowed from the civilization of other humans. We have to understand that. And we also have to understand that civilizations change. There were periods when, for example, the Eastern civilization has dominated. And then the Western, I mean, there was this tug of war in hundreds and sometimes in 1,000 years change that take place that show that some civilization that was, down for a while, then picks up, and a new civilization comes up, and that old civilization come back. And this is exactly what we see actually in the 21st century too. If you look at Asia, for example, 1960, the per capita income of South Korea was the same as Ghana or Ethiopia, right? China, essentially the same. Where are they now? I mean, we are talking about 60 or 70 years, right? Now, I mean, we are talking about China as another center of, another new center, empire. And China didn't do this by totally going back towards the old way of doing things. It is by adapting the change that has taken place through even the dominance of Western civilization, and adapt it and move forward. But in this process, what has helped, if you ask me, is this memory of the civilization. The Chinese intellectuals have this thing that they say, the century of humiliation. After the Opium War is when China went downhill because of the pressures coming from the West. When you ask them, how did China achieve this incredible growth in such a short time, they would say, our memory, the century of humiliation. That's what I want Africans to feel. That's what I want Ethiopians to feel. That the fact that we have a memory of an older civilization does not mean to go back to it. It is to have that memory and use it so that, it gives you the psychological boost that you can do this. There is nothing inherently wrong with you. You can't think like any other human being anywhere else. It's just a matter of how we organize our society in such a way that we can be able to achieve the levels that society has achieved, whether it's in education, in technology, in all of that. That is doable. That's doable because we have seen it in our own lifetime. I remember when China was just another third world country. I remember South Korea when it was, or most of Asia. We Africans can't do that too. There is nothing inherently wrong with us. We just have to organize our states. We just have to organize our economies in such a way that that will not provide the objectives that we want to achieve. And one more important thing. You look at the experience of China and Asia in recent years, and many people say, "Oh, they were, copying from the West," and there is nothing wrong with copying. But what is important is the concept of development that the Chinese are forwarding is not the same as the concept of development that the West is developing. Yes, technological change and so on, but in terms of how they keep their own culture, how they give value to distribution than just simply economic growth. What kind of state do we need? The role of the state in economic development. All these are now emerging as experiences that we can learn from. So we should not jump into picking one or the other of these past civilizations. We should say, what is it that worked for us? What is it that we need to do in order to achieve what other countries have achieved?
I guess it's like giving space for both and filtering from each side.
Exactly.
And taking 50-50 and eliminating absolutely following something as a trend and as a herd.
Absolutely.
We'll definitely come back on this point again too. So let me take you back through time. Your political dominance or engagement started back at the Ethiopian student movement during the time where universities were the center of political discussions. Civil awareness was very high. Majority of you were highly enlightened, and so on. So you're one of the living testimonies of that time. So we would like you to tell us what it looked like to be a student at that time, one. And the second part, we basically don't have a generalized, concrete idea of the political assumptions of that time. One might come and tell us that that was a wasteful time and an unnecessary sacrifice, and they have done nothing for the politics across the country. And the other might come and tell us that that was a very critical point in the history of Ethiopian politics. So you, as a living testimony, Professor, would you give us this general assumption of your thought of the political era at that time?
We must understand that modern Ethiopian politics started there. So that's the period. That is the period where Ethiopian politics moved from this traditional dominated by the monarchy and the big feudal lords and things like that, to a new class of people who come and say, no, this is not the way we want to move forward. In that sense, from the basic essence of creating, for example, a political party, for us, the experience comes from that time. And that time's experience of party politics comes from the left tradition, this vanguard party tradition. So in the way that we picked, that's why I sometimes try to make a distinction between the modernization imperative of wanting the country to move forward to the more ideological imperative of taking whole stock and barrel the Marxist ideology and say we can implement this and be productive. So what I tell the new generation is the problem with that generation is the degree to which it is ideological. Its intentions were good. Its intentions were to develop the country. Its intentions were to develop a reasonably more equitable society, but also a modern society. That intention is good, and that's our aspiration now. We went wrong when the ideology dominates not only our thinking, but our practice of politics. We became extremely parochial in our views. At that time, if it's not enough that you have a socialist idea or an idea that says, okay, there must be development but equity at the same time. But you have to be a specific brand. You have to be a Maoist or a Stalinist or a Trotskyite. These differences within the left tradition was simply absorbed as truisms without really seriously questioning the degree to which those issues are that important for us in the Ethiopian context. That kind of dogmatism, that kind of just simply taking ideas and thinking of them as if it is a religion rather than as a living proposition how to improve society. That is our mistake and our fault and our contribution to the negative outcomes. But there were also good things. The youth at that time gives its life without question if they believe it improves the life of the society in general. It is committed, it's not selfish, it is open, it is very nationalist in the sense that it loves its country, it wants to see that country developing, it wants to contribute to that, rather than to scramble for more resources. So that is also another. And also, the search for knowledge was much better then than now, in the sense that reading was considered an important thing to do. Debates, discussions, and study groups and things of that sort, to learn more, to know not only our country but also even more our world. That yearning for knowledge, I think, is an important aspect of that time, that the youth now can actually, to a certain degree, not totally, but to a certain degree, emulate. History should be taken in the context of the period itself. It's very difficult to evaluate that period from how we think about it today. We have to take it at that time. What were they thinking? It is just in the same way as, for example, we were condemning the emperors and the old monarchy without actually seeing what were they trying to achieve. Is there something good from it? The idea of, for example, having an access to the sea, something that has engaged Ethiopian emperors in the past. That was not a bad thing. That was, but even a sense of modernization. This idea that we are backward, that we need to modernize, was also, that seed was also in some of the monarchs. The thing is, they were not in a position to push it further so that we can have a developed thing. So what I am saying is, let's take history for what it is. Something that we can learn from, something that we can learn to avoid the mistakes of the past, but also to take the good things of that period and use it to drive us forward.
You've been criticizing the government. You've been questioning the decisions that have been made by governments the entire time, starting from your very youth, if I'm not wrong, right? So how does it feel now to sit at the place where you're now being criticized and now you're being questioned and now you're being part of the government?